Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Multiply Podcast. I'm Carson Sampson from MBCM, Mennonite Brethren Church of Manitoba, and my co-host David.
Hey, David Thiessen here from MB Mission.
There are a few things David and I have in common, in addition to good looks. We are also runners. We've been training for races throughout the year, and we're not hardcore, but we sure love to run. David, how's your running been going?
Shamefully, I'm afraid. See, the thing about this job I love is all the travel I get to do, but it also makes it very hard for me to get a rhythm going.
I'm pretty sure.
Basically, I have 1,000 excuses to make, but running's been pretty lousy. However, I've been biking to work.
Excellent.
So that's something.
You're getting your exercise.
I'm getting something.
You're a young man, fit as a fiddle. You got nothing to worry about. I'm running the other week. I'm training for a half marathon in October, so I have a friend who's been pushing me really hard, and the two of us go out at least a couple times a week, and then we do stuff on our own and blah, 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 blah. The other week, Sunday night, we're going through the Forks, and we literally have to come to a standstill and navigate our way through a herd of Pokemon Go players. Now, we are in mid-August, or getting there anyway, and I'm surprised the phenomenon hasn't waned more than it has, but here we are, still faced with hordes and hordes of people playing Pokemon Go. Now, I wouldn't say I refuse to download the app, but I have not yet touched it, mostly out of fear and ignorance, and just not sure what it would do to me as an addictive personality, perhaps. Do you play it?
I have. My roommates sucked me into the phenomenon. They told me it's a hassle to download. I actually downloaded it before it was even in Canada. They took me through all the steps you have to do to get American iTunes, et cetera, et cetera. They kept telling me it's worth it, it's worth it, it's worth it. And I played it for maybe a week. I got up to level 9. So I wouldn't say, there's a level cap of 40. There's probably plenty of people who are that high. I wouldn't say I'm an expert, but I've dabbled in it. And it is quite compelling. It's a lot of fun to play.
Crazy. Now, I understand that Pokemon is not a recent phenomenon. Obviously, this goes back quite a ways. And just to put some context to Pokemon for those people who, like myself, may not know a whole lot about it, what do you know about it as a youngin'?
Okay, well, I remember being in elementary school and trading Pokemon cards with my friends. So this goes way back to, at least that old. I don't know how much older. And I think the basics of the game are that you play the role of this Pokemon trainer who is searching this made-up world to look for different Pokemon. There's a TV show that went with it, Pokemon being pocket monsters.
Oh, okay.
So if you see a Pokemon in the wild in this original game back in like the 90s, you throw a Pokeball at the little monster and it gets sucked into the ball, and now it's your little pet. And as you collect different Pokemon pets, you can have them fight other people's Pokemons.
Man, oh man.
So now that we have this new thing, Pokemon Go, here in 2016, somebody has used smartphones to create basically a version of this Pokemon game where instead of exploring an animated world on a Nintendo, you're exploring our own world using your smartphone and its map systems and its GPS.
And its camera.
Right.
So this is essentially it's augmented reality.
That's right. So when my app alerts me that there's a Pokemon close by, I pull up my phone, I look at the screen, and through the camera I can see whatever room or building or whatever I am in real life, but the game puts in a little animated Pokemon into that camera's shot. So it looks like it's sitting on the table next to me or whatever else.
Now, I don't live under a rock. I was aware of what was happening with Pokemon Go, but it didn't really hit home to me until an intern here in the office came to me, and he showed me that he had the app, but also showed me that our office place, the 1310 Taylor here, is it a Pokestop? Is that the right term?
That's right.
So that being said, I don't see a lot of people hanging around or milling around here, but I'm not usually here later in the evening. Maybe there's more traffic then.
Who knows?
I don't know, but I don't usually see a lot happening there. But I also see on the occasional street corner that are like businesses and churches are tapping into this phenomenon and trying to find ways to bring people to their doors. For instance, a couple of searches I did for some churches, signs such as if looking for Pokemon, God's looking for you, come inside, we'll introduce you. That was a church in Oshawa.
Wow.
And this is one of my favorite, and I've seen this one a few times, and locally too. Blurry Pokemon, let Dr. So-and-so take a peek at you, which is, pretty standard for an optometrist's office. And so anyway, I got a kind of a kick out of it from maybe a pastor's perspective or a church perspective. Like, what does this phenomenon mean to your take on outreach. And so maybe we have a guest today. As always, we're going to ask Jason Dyck a little bit about what his thoughts are on the Pokemon Go phenomenon as a pastor. But really what we want to talk to Jason about, which also lends itself to Pokemon, knowing that I guess one of the goals is to be a Pokemon trainer. Yes,
right. Yeah.
Well, he's a trainer of sorts as well. He's a certified coach model trainer for the coach model, which is developed and run through L2L, Leaders to Learners, a wing or part of the Canadian Conference of MB Churches. Jason will be here in just a moment to tell us all about how he became the certified coach and how we can all benefit from the coach model. So good luck with your Pokemon game. I don't think I'm going to pick it up. I think I might just be content to watch other people play and to take a little bit of a breather, a reprieve from my runs when I run into the next group of Pokemon hunters or searchers. Okay, well, I want to welcome Jason Dyck here today. Jason Dyck is the pastor at Elm Creek MB Church. Jason, so glad you're here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
And why don't you start by letting us know where Elm Creek is and what's Elm Creek known for?
Sure, I can start. Elm Creek is 30 minutes southwest of the perimeter, and it's a little tiny town, farming community. There is just about 350 people that live in the village of Elm Creek. It is really small. I don't know what Elm Creek is known for. We do have a really big fire hydrant, so that maybe something that you'll see if you go there. Yeah, it's a beautiful place. It's a place where people know each other for the most part. And I was reflecting this morning as I was walking to church from my home that I've spent 5 years waving to everybody I encounter, whether they're in a vehicle or walking or whatever. And that's an interesting thing. So that's Elm Creek.
So you know all your neighbors, or you know all of Elm Creek?
No, I wouldn't say I know them all, but I know a fair number of them. Yeah, it's a really neat community.
Cool. And what's happening at Elm Creek MB right now? What are you guys in the middle of?
Well, it's summertime, so for right now there's a lot of getting ready for what's coming next. And for us, the next season of our ministry at church will be focused on, the headline will be spiritual renewal, and just how that plays out will be a few different things. But I'm excited for what God's trying to do in our midst, and looking for every way that we can to get on board with that direction. So that's where we're focused right now, and we're looking forward to it.
Okay, Jason's just brought us copies of the Coach Model for Christian Leaders. This is a book written by Keith E. Webb, and I'm going to guess this is what L2L, or Leaders to Learners, has based their material on. But could you tell us a bit more about it?
Sure. The Coach Model is the coaching model that Leaders to Learners has adopted as an idea. The big idea is to develop, create, promote, move forward a coaching culture across Canada in all of our churches and in every part, really. And so, there's a few details about a little bit of a lane change as of late, but the bottom line is that this coach model is something that we really believe in, and that, through evidence, certainly in my own life, but I've seen it elsewhere, where it really shows up in a way that can be really powerful for people, can really help. It's been helpful for me in so many ways. One of the big ways for me that the coach model had been helpful is the idea of self-awareness. The skill of learning to ask questions pushes a person to consider what another person is thinking and saying more perhaps than we naturally do. So I'm one of those people that has a tendency to simply think while someone else is talking and just wait for their lips to stop flapping so that there can be something important said. And I know nobody else is like that,
no,
but
that's not what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, but that's one way that this learning has really helped me over the last few years. It's really, really helpful. For anybody that's not sure what I or we are talking about when we talk about coaching, there's a definition that Keith, in his book, The Coach Model for Christian Leaders, that's the whole title of the book. This is the definition of coaching that they interact with, and that I really believe is a great definition, and it's this. So this is just from Keith Webb. Coaching is an ongoing, intentional conversation that empowers a person or group to fully live out God's calling. So that's what it's about. It's about that fundamental conviction that the Holy Spirit is at work in every Christian, and we're not there to replace the Holy Spirit as someone who's on the other side of a conversation. Because so often, and it's not always that we don't have something to say, somebody's talking about a problem in their life and there might be a good solution, but often when we try to offer a solution, I think we try to replace the Spirit of God, and that's a great foundation for that conversation. So that's what coaching's all about.
You are a certified coach model trainer yourself,
sure,
right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now you've taken extra steps in order to be
Right.
One who facilitates and teaches others to coach. So
Sure.
Maybe you could tell me a little bit about how you first got interested in going to that next level.
Sure can. That all started really, I'm not sure how long ago now, maybe 3 years. Here in Manitoba, we have some really great people who work at our conference, of which you were one, and they're always providing opportunities for us around the province to learn, to grow, and living relatively close to Winnipeg, where most of this stuff happens, is a big benefit for me. So I just try to take advantage of everything I can. And one of those opportunities was a coaching workshop a few years ago, and did that, and then continued. And they kept calling me and saying, "Do you want to take the next step?" And I kept saying yes. As long as you keep offering, I'll keep saying yes. And that's been exciting. And the latest of those opportunities, the L2L Canadian Conference felt that it was an appropriate thing to send me and a few other people to Seattle for a week to take something called the Coaching Master Course, or the Mastery Coaching. The name's escaping me at the moment, but it was an excellent class, the best course that I've ever experienced, for sure.
So what makes a coach different than a mentor or an advice giver, or somebody just saying, helpful things?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think those roles are really important. So the last thing I would want to do is say that coaching is a better path than mentoring or teaching or any of the roles that you might imagine. Mentor has a great place in our world and in our churches, in our ministry settings, where we can have somebody come alongside. That I was doing an interview in this past week at church with a young woman who had been in Thailand, and she was talking about one principle that she really felt was important to her during her time in Thailand, what she observed in their method of discipling. And she talked about it a bit, and the conclusion that we thought as far as how that could apply to us today is that, whenever you're doing stuff, don't do it alone. So mentoring has a great place, I think, in our world. Coaching takes a bit of a different look at a person. Instead of putting in to a person the things that you need to know, and there's a place for that. But instead of putting in, we want to do everything we can to pull out of that person what God's already up to in their life. And it has a lot of great applications, especially with people who want to perform their best and want to do better than they're doing already. That's something I've observed in my experience of coaching people. People who want to be coached tend to be people who perform highly already. They're not lost. They're people who are doing really well in their area of work or of life and want to go further. And so it makes it easy, in a sense, on a coach that, looking at somebody who's just doing an excellent job and just wants to take the next step. What a great conversation to be a part of. I love it. One thing that we go through in the coach model isn't that you can't be a person. It's not that you have to be some kind of talking head that doesn't have any experience or opinion or anything like that, but we just hold it and wait. And so what I usually do is, I'll be happy to share that with you, but before I do, let's keep at what God's doing in you. And so it's not as though I don't say, okay, now let me tell you what my opinion is. But I want to hold that, and I want to wait. And sometimes maybe that just goes away, and other times it comes back, and yep, here you go. And occasionally I'll say, is it okay? Is it okay if I just have some experience in it? And it's probably not like yours, because no experiences are exactly alike. But here's, something that did show up for me. Maybe that makes some sense to you, maybe not. But there you go.
You talked a little bit about your journey You spoke about a trip to Seattle.
Right.
I'm wondering if you could just tell us a little bit more about the process of becoming a certified church model trainer. How long does that type of thing take, and what's the commitment on that individual's part?
Yeah, well, to become a trainer in the path that I've taken and that L2L has put in front of me was not as clean as I imagine it might be today. So today, the path would be to take the 3-day coach model workshop, and that could happen here. You know, I don't have any dates right now, but we're going to be talking with you and Elton and trying to figure out what might work in the next year for Manitoba. And after that, if a person wanted to be a trainer of this coach model, then you would have to go to one of the coaching mastery courses that happen once a year in Seattle and Atlanta and in Singapore, which I don't know why we didn't go to that one. Or there's one in Spain too. We could have, that one would have been good too. But so that would be the path to becoming a coach trainer for this model.
What's the demand on you as a coach, or on our current crop of coach model trainers? Is it a great demand?
I would say not right now, but we'll see. Previously, we had a bit of a different approach where we were using material from another source, and L2L decided to go straight to the source of the author of this book and go with that direction. So right now, we're in a bit of a transition, and we'll see as far as the demand of being a trainer.
How does one, as an individual, go about receiving a coach?
Good question. So yeah, if there's somebody that's at all interested in trying it out, you know, maybe it's one time or for a series. One of the things that I think is, you're going to find coaches that have different opinions about this, but I think a good baseline for coaching is that it is temporary, that it's not a forever, that it's not an every week or an every 2 weeks thing forever, that it's for seasons. It works well in seasons. And even with, like I have one leader that I've been a coach for years, it's still in seasons. You know, we do a set, we stop, recheck, you know, should we move on? Do you want us to do another set? And we do it like that. So it's not something that, you know, you sign off for life. The best way, the easiest way right now is to go to the L2L website and click on the Coach Me. And then you go through a bit of an assessment where there's a few questions about who you are, what you're up to, where you're going. And then our national staff folks will connect you with a coach and find somebody that will work. You can try out, test somebody out, see if they work for you, and you don't have to feel the same kind of loyalty that you might feel to your barber. It's okay if it doesn't work, you know, and that's a good way.
Have you yourself been coached also?
Yeah.
What's that been like?
Yeah, that's been excellent. I think that's necessary, you know, to being a coach is to be coached. One of the first questions I came here when I moved here to Manitoba, new place, new environment, was to go to Keith Poisty, our conference pastor, and ask him to help me find somebody that could be a mentor. You know, it was kind of before I had a sense of what coach meant. Not that I would have asked a different question, but he couldn't find anybody, so he said he'd do it, and that has been really good. I've just really enjoyed our relationship over the years, and you know, we meet less now than maybe we did the first couple of years, but that's been awesome. And then in more recent times, I've been in a coaching relationship with, and it's okay. He says it's okay if I say who, because you know he's kind of a celebrity for everybody in MB circles. Not really, but Andrew Dyck, who, no relation, has been my coach for a little over a year now, and that relationship is nuanced, you know, and every coaching relationship is. I think, you know, we look at something like the coach model and we say, well, it's a great model, it's clean, but every time two people interact, it's going to look different. And so for Andrew and me, the one way that I've kind of described it is that it's been kind of like spiritual care, and he's just good at that. He cares deeply about me and what's going on in my life, and he cares on a level that a few people are just able to. I mean, he just has a skill set there. So that's something I really appreciate about him. So those are two people that in recent years have been a coach in my life.
It's helpful, and I've been coached by a number of people too, including like my supervisors, Lloyd and Carol.
Yeah.
And what I really appreciate about it is that naturally in a conversation, I would way prefer to ask questions than to answer them. And so when it is a time set aside specifically as coaching, here I am being asked a series of things, and I need to actually like voice my opinions and analyze what's going on and express it out loud. Right. And even that takes me out of my usual, which is to be the asker instead of the one being asked. So I think even having undergone being coached helps me be a better coach too, right? Because now I'm like, oh man, what am I putting people through? But it is actually quite helpful in the end.
Yeah, I agree.
The website you were referring to, it's l2lnet.org. And looking through that website and having some knowledge of how that system works, it looks like a lot of coaching is done online through video software, Skype, or something of that nature.
Yep.
But do you find you get a lot of requests for regional or Manitoban folks wanting to meet with you so that they can do face-to-face? Are you doing less and less of that or more of that?
I haven't done much of that lately. I have. I put a cap to L2L. I at one point it felt that I didn't want to do too much, and so at one point I said I want to just stick with this number of people, and so they don't keep calling me, and that's okay. Yeah, so I would say that doesn't really happen. Although here's what I have observed is I've had many people, 4 or 5 anyway, so if that's many, a few people come up to me and say things like, coaching is really important. I really think I need it. I'm going to be talking to you or whoever, but then they don't get around to it. Mm-hmm. And it's one of those pieces of life that if it doesn't become really important, it's not something that gets tried. And that, that's just sort of a challenge that's there. I'm not sure I have all the solutions for how to kind of help people to give it a try and realize the real benefit and the real value there. But I think that's something that, we're all so busy, especially, not especially, I was going to say especially pastors. It's not true. Everybody's busy. And for people in ministry settings, if we don't get a sense of why this could be so valuable, there's enough to do. There's enough. So that's a challenge that's in front of us. I don't have all the answers for that.
Can you think of any stories where it has been really helpful for the person getting coached? Times you've seen God really move through?
There's a pastor that I've been in conversation with many times. One season of this particular pastor's life was just dealing with staff stress, and so there's a co-pastor or a subordinate pastor, like a children's pastor, youth pastor, that it's just not working, and this particular senior pastor is just trying to figure out the best way forward, and just, hearing all the frustration, going through all the options, deciding what to try, deciding what conversation to get into, deciding, that didn't work and to try something else. Just watching this particular fellow over the course of time kind of hit one thing and go to the next thing and go to the next thing and go to the next thing. And one of the great moments for me, and this is a generalization, but I'll come back to the specifics of that one for a little bit. But the generalization thing is that something that coaching does is stays focused on the person and not the problem. And it's so easy for us. You're looking out at your life and you've got a tech problem or you've got a relationship problem or you've got a job problem, whatever it is. And we stay focused on that. And we look for somebody to come in and say, help me with that thing. I'm looking at this problem over here. Help me look at that and explain to me what's going to work. And so on. One thing that coaching always tries to do is go back to the person. How are you doing? So, there's this problem, there's this children's pastor that you're in conflict with, it's not working out. What's God saying to you in the midst of this conflict? What are you learning here? And that for me is a really rewarding thing to see a person grapple with that and saying, oh wow, God's a part of this. And here's what I think he's doing. And that's a realization that I didn't do. And then at the end of the conversation, when I say, so, what new insight did you have today? And sometimes they'll come back and say, Well, you know, when you asked me that, or when you said that, that was a huge, really aha moment. And it really wasn't me; it was them that came up with that. It was the Holy Spirit in them that they heard, and they said it, and it wasn't me at all. For this pastor, those moments are huge. And then really it's just the ability to go from A to B to C to D, and just to keep moving forward and not get stuck in whatever it is. You know, we're stuck in a relationship, we forget about it. We're stuck in it's just never going to work, I should fire them. We're stuck in a thing, talk to the board, they don't know what to do. You know, and not being stuck is a huge, just love that. And then celebrating just them and who they are.
Because it is quite action-oriented, right? Yeah. Coach actually does stand for a process, right? Can you just take us through that?
I'd love to. Yeah, and everybody here has learned this, which I think is really neat. But yeah, that's a great thing to do, is to go through the acronym of COACH. It's a model that I found all over the place in different ways. It kind of has shown up. There's a model of preaching that I follow that's really close to this, but doesn't at all come from this, which is a story for another day. But this COACH model, and so I'll just briefly explain each part of it. The C is connect, and as well as I do, that if you come up to somebody and tell them what you're going to do, or what they should do without having a sort of relationship with them, it's not going anywhere. And so connect is just kind of level the playing field. We are human. How's life? What's going on? And that's just so necessary. So that's C in COACH. The O is outcome. And the idea is it's Stephen Covey's begin with the end in mind. That's the whole picture. And looking forward and saying, okay, if this conversation went perfectly, what would be different at the end of it? What do you want to tackle today? You know, what's the target that we're aiming for? So then when you have that set, you go to A, which is awareness, and that's just lots of questions asked from a lot of different angles. How can the coach help this coachee understand the problem that they're looking at? How can they understand the circumstance, the people, what they bring to the table, what someone else has to bring to the table, all those dynamics that are going on? How can we build awareness through questions in this person? That's A. And then C in COACH, the second C is course. What's the action? You said action. And what are you going to do about this? How can I help you get to an action step that's achievable, that's smart? You probably know that acronym, and how to make steps measurable and achievable and relevant, and inside of time and all that. So that's something that's really powerful for people, because if they can grapple with what to do next, and that could actually happen in a week or two, that's huge, being able to do that. So that's the second C. And then the H at the end of COACH acronym is highlights. And this is one it's really easy to skip over. It's you get to the end of a conversation and you say, wow, you're going to do that. That's awesome. I'm so looking forward to how you're going to improve your hairstyle over the next couple of weeks. Not you guys have no need for that. I have great needs.
It's more than a coach.
But this final part of it, this highlights, this what did you learn from today? What new insight do you have? What has God said? What are you taking away from here? Gives that person an opportunity just to solidify the whole conversation. It's a really powerful moment. And I just love that part. So that's COACH, coach.
I wouldn't want to stretch it too far, but I mean, I've done some spiritual discipline stuff at Canadian University or others, and a lot of it is about attentiveness to what's going on in you, attentiveness to the Spirit. I mean, people call it mindfulness in other communities, but it sounds quite spiritual. It may be a little rigid and like there's an acronym and everything, but it is quite fluid too. There's a lot of like paying attention to God through the whole thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So an individual may not necessarily see coaching as a benefit when things are going great.
Right.
And they don't realize the importance in self-awareness and self-help and what coaching could bring them until they reach a certain pain point. So they come to you looking for a solution. And I'm wondering if in many cases an individual comes to L seeking a coach when really they should be seeking a counselor. And I wonder if you could speak to the difference between coaching and counseling.
The biggest difference between coaching and counseling is counseling looks to the past to say what's been going on and how do we deal with what you've gone through. And coaching never, almost never goes to the past, always to the future. Where are you going? But you're right to point out that there's two very different things. And someone had, asked a similar question. When someone is going through hardship, a wife and a mom comes to me and says, my husband is leaving me. He's moved in with someone else and abandoning his kids, and we don't know how we're going to live and support ourselves. How do you coach them? And the answer is you don't. You don't coach that person. That's not somebody that needs a coach. That's somebody that needs somebody to put their arm around them, figuratively or literally, and say, God cares about you, and here's how I'm going to help you in a small way, because you're going to need more than me, help you through that time. Yeah, coaching doesn't fit with people who are going through crisis, I would say. It just doesn't. It fits best with people who are looking forward to something that they want to accomplish, and that's where it works.
So when somebody applies for coaching, is there some form of triage that happens ahead of that so that those things can be identified?
Right. Yeah, and that's something that happens without me in the case of here. Yeah. So what happens is that this information goes to L2L, and most likely Daniel Butler will be the guy that does that triage and looks at it and says, here's where that fits. And, maybe I'm saying it too strongly. Like, anybody can be connected with a coach, and that relationship probably develop into something that could be really helpful for somebody that's going through crisis. I've never been approached, certainly by L2L, asking me to coach somebody that's going through a crisis. That's never happened. And I don't know that I would ever try to coach somebody in crisis. That said, if someone's in crisis and doesn't, or consistently, or doesn't want to listen to anyone, because you've all been there. You're going through something, and you go and you talk to your buddy or your girlfriend or whatever, and here's my problem, and they tell you, and they've told you the same thing 100 times, and you haven't listened 100 times. Mm-hmm. That may be a good place for coaching, because counseling is not working. You're just telling them what to do, or even if they go to a professional counselor over and over and over, and they simply just don't listen. There may be a great place for coaching right there, as a, hey, why not give it a shot? Because telling isn't working.
So we know that coaching works with individuals, but I think L2L, they also offer coaching for congregations. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true.
And what are some of the key differences there? And how does a congregation go about getting this assessment and coaching? Yeah,
so to answer that question, let me tell you kind of anecdotally first, and then I'll answer the clinical answer. So because I'm kind of in this world a little bit, I have some window, and other churches have taken advantage of this, which I think is excellent. This was just a year and a half ago, I want to say. Our church has been working through a yearly system of trying to identify our vision and our focus for this next year in the scope of a bigger vision. And what are we going to do? What are we going to do about that this year? So what is our strategic plan for this next year? And me, of course, being the person I am, believe that I was the right person to help us do all this, and some parts of that's true. But at some point along the way, having another voice as a part, certainly as a facilitator, can really help. Being a facilitator when you're full of content is a really, really hard job. And so, trying to manage a conversation where you've got a stake in the conversation, that's difficult. And so we thought it was appropriate to invite L2L to be a part of this, and in a way that churches, so this is the clinical sort of part of that, is going to that L2Lnet.org website and coach us, and going through that process and getting someone to come and facilitate a conversation that looks a lot like the coach model, really, and to help a church or a group, whether it's a board or a ministry team or a congregation or whatever it is, to take a step forward in the direction that God's calling them. So for us, that started with three or four of us in front of a television, looking at Daniel across GoToMeeting and talking about our strategic plan or the part of it that we were at, and so he tackled that from a facilitating a conversation with the board perspective. So Daniel flew out here at no charge to us and facilitated a weekend with our board. And that really helped propel us forward in terms of what's our next year look like. And so we had some framework in place, but we just said we want to take another step. And Daniel was really helpful at getting us there.
And I've noticed it's not just churches that are taking advantage of this. This week on the mbherald.com website, a story related to Hannah House Maternity Home in Niagara Falls. Now, their staff took the Coach Us training
Yeah.
through L to L, and they've been able to apply those coaching fundamentals to working with the young women who are participants at Hannah House. So there's some real success stories for churches and for other organizations, and I think we're just maybe tapping or just getting to the surface of the potential of this type of service.
Absolutely. I think that's something to point out too, is that L to L in this coaching culture is not limited even to Christians. So anyone in any setting of life, whether it's a group or an individual, can go and get a coach, no matter what.
Right.
There's no limits to this. And I think that that's something that, who couldn't in whatever setting, so for me, just simply as a husband, could I benefit from a coach? Absolutely. For me, narrow it down. For me, as the father of an 8-year-old who's occasionally disobedient, and I use that occasionally like very leniently, could I use a coach in that one slice of life? Absolutely, I could. And I could take advantage of that, and maybe I should. So that's something that I think is a really powerful opportunity that perhaps could be taken advantage of far beyond what it is, because right now, maybe sometimes we think of coaching as something that, lead pastors or lead missionaries or lead whatever people do, and everybody else doesn't do that. But I think it could go so far beyond that. It could really help our whole culture.
So this is the toughest question. This is the one the nitty gritty that I really want to get down to is, does your church have a Pokemon Go sign outside?
No, we don't do church signs at our church.
At all?
At all.
Yeah, I was talking to David a little while ago about the whole Pokemon Go phenomenon, and we're reading out some of the more interesting, or maybe the more typical church signs.
Tell me what you've heard.
Yeah, well, there's things like, I'm going to mispronounce this, and David can correct me because he's our expert. But no vaporin here. Inside is something more rare and valuable. And then they have their worship time. Yeah, so what is it? I don't know what a vaporin is. Vaporeon. Yeah. Okay. Looking for Pokemon or Jesus, both found here. So that's encouraging and inclusive. So there's a lot of that stuff. Yeah. But what I am hearing from pastors who say this is an opportunity to maybe reach out to new people. Is any of this in Elm Creek hit home for you? Or maybe, yeah.
Well, is it okay if I answer with a bit of a story first?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. Yeah.
So I played Pokemon Go for about 45 minutes.
Nice.
So I had heard, start hearing stories, read stories about this phenomenon that took off this summer's a month ago, whatever it was. And so I was, fascinated by what was happening. All of a sudden, people all over the world were, getting aches and pains. What are they doing walking around? Something that was getting them off their butt and into the world in fascinating ways. So it was very interesting to me. And so I have kids, so I installed the app and said, hey, look at this. And then that night, we were away on vacation. It happened to be staying at my parents' house at the time. And so we were away in Saskatchewan, and nobody really knows me. So I felt confident that I could walk with my wife in the dark to the convenience store to get some milk, so there we go. And so I had this game open on my phone and trying to figure out what to do. And then we're walking to this place where I think I'm supposed to go. I don't really know what's going on. And so we're heading that way, and all of a sudden, this pack of teenage girls on their bikes with all their phones open come racing up to that same spot. So I immediately closed my phone and put it in my pocket because I don't want to be associated with teenagers or anything like that. That's not true or fair, but. So that happened, and so I got to see a little bit of what it was. And then I uninstalled it because I don't know why. There's probably lots of reasons. No. I'm not too judgmental of people that for any reason maybe, but yeah. So I get a little experience about that, and it is interesting to see the phenomenon. And there's probably a lot of principles at play there that maybe we don't have time to go into that are very interesting to me. And the practice of pulling from culture and putting it into, letting it be a sort of on-ramp to a conversation about Christ is everywhere and all the time. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's great. whether there's parallels, that's another thing. You know, I didn't know before this phenomenon that Pokemon is actually, it's like an acronym. It's not an acronym strictly, but it means pocket monster. And so I thought that was kind of interesting that this is what it is. And I thought there was an interesting analogy in a sense to between Pokemon Go and something like street evangelism, or maybe walking with the Spirit in the world. And, you know, this sort of, you're kind of walking around and you get this little ding that says there's somebody to talk to or somebody to interact with. And then you look through your Spirit-filled lens and God's telling you it's that person. So maybe there's a good analogy there. But so I don't know, you know, if people use culture to springboard a conversation about faith, that's great. You know, like Paul, his approach was, hey, whatever, I'll use any means necessary to preach the gospel of Jesus. It doesn't matter what it is, I'll use it. So hey, more power to him.
So would you or would you not consider preaching a sermon where instead of, 99 sheep are in the pen, Jesus goes out to search for the last, there is like 141 Pokemon caught and you're searching for the final 142nd?
Yeah, it depends on the crowd, you know. If the audience is tech savvy, under 35, sure, why not? But in my church, maybe I'll make an offhanded reference, you know, as a way of communicating. But to go full bore comparison, probably not.
Yet.
Probably not.
Well, whoever's listening, that is a freebie. I want to hear that in a sermon somewhere.
Yeah, no kidding, absolutely. And wearing a Pokemon costume while you do it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You might as well go all in.
Absolutely.
That's the way it works. Well, I just wanted to express our gratitude. Thanks so much for coming in and sharing what it is you know about coaching and what it is you do. And just encourage you to keep up that good work. And I'd also encourage any listeners who are interested in coaching to contact Jason or contact us at nbcm.ca or give us a call at the office and we'll point you in the right direction. And of course, visit l2lnet.org for even more information.